Hello everyone, a very good evening. A strong woman stands up for herself. A stronger woman stands up for everyone else. So today we are here not just to listen but to voice out our stories, our struggles and our dreams. Storytelling being my first love, I always religiously begin my session with a story. So here is the story. So once upon a time in a bustling city of Mumbai, there lived a boy whose name was Yash. Curious and eager to learn, he carried with him the lessons of his college days, especially those imparted by his English professor Dr. Vidya Prem Kumar. She is more than just an educator. She is a guide who dared to address topics often left unspoken: gender dynamics, healthy relationships, and personal safety. Years later, Yash reconnected with Dr. Vidya, only to find her facing with a personal health challenge and the cultural silence surrounding it. This conversation sparked something within Yash, a realization of how deeply ingrained societal taboos hinder open discussions on essential issues. Determined to make a difference, Yash envisioned a platform that could foster awareness and education. As the idea took shape, he was joined by Miss Neelu Grover, a veteran in educational reform whose passion for change matched his own. Together, the three pioneers founded Gyan Vistar in November 2023, a movement dedicated to breaking barriers and nurturing informed, empowered communities. Through workshops on sex education, safety, healthy relationships, and gender sensitization, Gyan Vistar strives to create a society where knowledge replaces stigma and awareness leads to lasting change. So here are our proud team. On behalf of Gyan Vistar, I welcome each and everyone who is present today for this powerful panel discussion on Women's Day. Yes, so this is the link of our site and this is the proud team of Gyan Vistar. We have all these consultants, I am one of them, and we all have come under Gyan Vistar's umbrella to share our expertise. So welcome everyone once again. So now as we begin our journey from self-doubt to self-worth, I want to start with a very small game. So this is like a kind of, you can say, like an icebreaker, right? So it's how the power of words can influence us, right? So I want everybody to type one word which comes to your mind when we say the word confidence. I want everybody to do it, even the panelists, even the participants, each and every one of them. The one word which comes to your mind when we say the word confidence. Grace, power, yes. Inner self, yes. Presence, simplicity. Okay, so we will continue. So that was something awesome, right? When comes confidence, we have so much in our mind and we really don't know what to write, that one word, right? So very frankly speaking, when I say confidence, I say myself, right? I think that's something which we really need to do. Each and every woman in this world need to do, right? We are confident for everything we do in life. So that is something which we are here for today. Right? So confidence is just not one thing. It is a different for each and everyone, right? Yet at its core, it is about trusting yourself even when the world tells you otherwise, isn't it? So, let me start with a story of a very inspirational woman which, I really get inspired from her a lot, especially by reading her storybooks. And you won't believe, when I go to colleges, when I go to take corporate training, her book is always there in my bag. So, Sudha Murthy. Now, when we talk about her, we have so many things coming up in our mind, right? So, when she started her journey as a young engineer, she applied in Telco, which is now known as Tata Motors. She was met with an rejection because when they had given their advertisement, at bottom it was written that no women, it's not for women, right? And when she applied, of course, she was rejected, not because of her skills, but because she was a woman. But instead of, accepting it, she wrote a letter to J.R.D. Tata herself, right? And questioning why gender should be a barrier to talent. So impressed by her courage, he called her for an interview and she became the first female engineer hired by Telco. Her journey didn't stop there. As a philanthropist, author, and the backbone of Infosys, she has uplifted countless lives, providing that confidence is built by challenging limitations and believing in oneself. So, her story is a reminder that self-doubt is not the end of the road. It's in fact the beginning of a journey, right? So today we are here to talk about that journey, how we as women rise above doubt and claim our self-worth. So before we start, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sheetal, your host for this evening. I'm a psychologist, a performance storyteller, a trainer, a NLP coach and a healer, but most importantly, a woman who has had her own battles with self-doubt. Like many of you, there were times when I wondered, am I enough? Do I belong here in this room or maybe in this, panelist discussion as well, right? There are many who really think like that. Right? So will my voice be heard? Right? Sometimes when I have seen many of people, when they go to any panel discussion or something, they just sit quietly. Rather than discussing, they don't want to talk because they are always afraid that will my voice be heard? Will I be talking right? Right? But time and again, life has taught me that confidence is not about never doubting yourself. It is about moving forward despite the doubts. And that's why today's conversation is all about it, about learning, about sharing and growing together. This evening we have a very powerful of incredible women who have walked their path in their own ways. Each of these inspiring women has faced moments of self-doubt and emerged stronger. So let's meet all of them here. Yes, ma'am, you all can please on your videos, Jaya ma'am. Yes. So we have with us Miss Jayashree Kath. She is an educationist and a school leader who would like to be known as the principal learner. Next we have Miss Shrishti Srivastava, a dynamic entrepreneur and a health technologist. The next panelist is Miss Trupti Saini, a holistic energy healer and life coach, guiding people to inner confidence. The next we have is Miss Shloka Shankar. She is a poet, an author, an editor and a self-taught visual artist from Bangalore. She has written books like Points of Arrival and The Field of Why. Besides, she has written many poems, many books, but these two were the main which I know about it. The next and the last one is Miss Upasana Tendulkar. She is founder of Dancing Tales. She is passionate Bharatanatyam dancer, educator and an entrepreneur. So before we begin, let's take a moment to appreciate the incredible women we have with us today. Each of them is a powerhouse in her own way. shaping lives, inspiring changes, and leading with purpose. So, thank you all for being here today and sparing your time today. And now, without any further ado, let's begin the discussion with a very important question for each of our panelists. So, it's told that doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. Isn't that true? So, each panelist can introduce themselves before answering the question which I will put forward to them. Yes, so our very first panelist is Miss Jayashree Kar. Welcome, ma'am. So, the question to you is, can you share a moment when self doubt almost stopped you and how you overcame it?
Uh, First of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for a very humbling introduction. And let me tell you that I was thinking about those moments, but I don't think I have a single moment because self doubt is something which I carry with me. The baggage is always there. And I remember my childhood being a middle child. There was always a doubt about my presence in the family, whether I was required or not. I'm talking about years back. I'm senior to all of you. But gradually, my education and my exposure, my studies in one of, not one, the best college of India, the Miranda House, really gave me that, boost because I was with the same gender peers, and I saw a lot of PhD lecturers, not even students, but my teachers were very feisty. They were like on those, in those times, I'm talking about early 80s, very early 80s. They were feminists, and they gave you lots of energy, they gave you lots of boost because at that time uh, it was a very different situation which many of you have not been exposed to. And a girl going to a college alone was, it was the norm, but you were just supposed to be studying, you were not supposed to be thinking much of a career. But my lecturers gave me lots of power, and that college groomed me a lot. And I was the one who was always taking pangas, trying to join everywhere, doing everything what I wanted to, and I was very fearless. Anywhere, anything, I was actually very fearless because I had nothing to lose. I was called a rebel by my family, but then I was actually rebelling because I wanted my own place. I wanted my own space as an individual. And I did lots of things, and that gave me lots of exposure. I don't know, I don't want to call it a confidence because we never defined it as confidence. We never defined self-doubt. We didn't we didn't know what that word is. And confidence was something which we saw in all those girls who came in chauffeur driven cars, well dressed and well groomed, and you used to think, hum kahan hai bhai, kya, what are we doing? But okay, that was an age of innocence. Then marriage brought me to a new city. I started my career as a uh, fashion designer. I used to have my own boutique on the other end of Delhi, and I don't know how to define whether it was a success or a failure, but I had a gala time, dressing myself up and a few clients which we got. And then I got married and was a housewife for about 7 years and constantly doubting myself whether I can really do something now. I was in a very business oriented family where no bahu used to work. No one has worked till date also. But a chance manipulation of my admission of my children to a school. I manipulated this and got a job there. And from there on, I doubted whether I'll be able to handle a class full of kindergartners. I started from a kindergarten teacher, went on a maternity leave, and I thought, what am I going to do in the class? I don't know even A to A about handling children. But yes, there was just a moment. I'm telling you, we never thought that way. Ki karenge, nahi karenge. Ab kar liya, let's do it now. And then started my journey as an educationist. And during all that journey, I was the one who used to take up all challenging assignments, whether by necessity or whether by that kida of taking pangas everywhere, got into it. And wherever there was a challenge or something which was new, I was in there. And that's what brought me to the place where I am. I don't know whether I'm successful or a trailblazer or what. Because, let me tell you, social media and LinkedIn makes you feel you're not doing anything. Actually, that's one another factor. But the life has been, I think I've been oscillating between self-doubt and self-confidence, and it's situational, and it depends where I'm at that place and how am I talking to myself. That matters a lot. The language which I speak at that moment to myself is what matters the most. So that's my story about. And as I say, picture abhi baki hai. Let's see how it goes forward. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. So that's such an interesting perspective, right? As Jayashree ma'am said that in those days, like we would call ourselves old school, ma'am. Can we do that? Like, so
No,
it was nothing
no.
about confidence. Like we never thought that we need to be confident. Like as if we can say that that was inborn in us, and we had never kept it as a thing that okay, you have to look confident, you have to dress this way. In those days it did not matter that much, though now the competitions have increased and the world has opened up. The cultures have mixed now so much that everything now is being noticed and is being seen. But in
I
those
want to
days these
add.
things
I
were,
want to
yeah,
add one thing. Sorry,
yeah,
that those days there was a strong gender crisis in names of being a girl, being a
yes,
woman, and you had to
yes,
constantly. You were in a fight or flight mode, so
yes,
you
yes,
chose fight. Yeah. Thank you.
yes, yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. So it's like if you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you are, isn't it? So that's like very much like you, ma'am. So as you said, you always used to take panga and you always wanted to try new things. So let's move on to our next panelist.
I still do pangas only. I'll tell you
Okay.
those stories sometime.
Okay, sure, sure. It will be so much fun to hear all those things. So let's move on to our next panelist, Shrishti Srivastava. She's an entrepreneurship, it's something like a tough journey. And Shrishti ma'am, I want you to tell how did you build confidence, in this competitive world? Like in this, how was your journey?
Okay. Thank you so much. Great to see people show up on Women's Day when it's holiday. uh,
Yes.
so, about myself, I graduated from IIT Bombay in 2014. Worked for a few years in the private sector and public sector both before founding my own startup, InfiHeal. So at InfiHeal, we are focused on leveraging technology to bring mental health to around 150 million Indians, and over a billion people globally who are dealing with acute and chronic mental health problems. So my challenge, uh, as a child, I was it begins like this. I was actually 12 and I had to go on this quiz competition called India's Child Genius, and it was telecasted on Star World. It was a huge deal. Siddharth Basu would host it, and you had like these amazing kids show up, and I was naturally very excited. But during the entire shoot, I felt a lot of anxiety, and I actually couldn't complete the entire shoot. Like I had to be escorted by my parents outside the set, and ever since then I would constantly feel that लोग मुझे watch कर रहे हैं, people are judging me, and मैं कुछ गलत बोल रही हूँ क्या, like सब मेरे ऊपर ही हंस रहे हैं. So all of that actually became a part of my internal dialogue. And at a very young age I started going for therapy sessions, and I found a lot of gaps in this entire system. I felt like stigma बहुत ज्यादा है, awareness है नहीं किसी को, and like इसके बारे में conversation नहीं होता घरों में. In fact, my mother also would hesitate to talk to my father कि ये problem ऐसी ऐसी है. Like it would be spoken in a very indirect or in a very hushed way. So I felt like tackling this would be important. And when I went to IIT Bombay and studied technology, I realized that tech actually can bring scale and solve this in a very unique way. So that's when the idea came कि we can have anonymity embedded in the design to ensure that anybody can talk about whatever problem that they have without feeling कि किसको पता चलेगा क्या होगा घर बैठे बैठे, right? That's how the idea was born. So obviously self doubt has been a part of my journey throughout. um, and I think what one thing which I discovered along the way is that competence actually builds confidence. So confidence doesn't just happen if you stay in your room and don't do any work, right? The best confidence actually comes in my view. And there are two types of people I'll further classify. एक टाइप के लोग होते हैं जिनकी रियलिटी टेस्टिंग उतनी स्ट्रांग नहीं होती, तो वो लोग बिलीव कर पाते हैं मैनिफेस्टेशन में या लॉ ऑफ अट्रैक्शन में कि हाँ हम ये हो सकते हैं, आई कैन गेट देयर, राइट? एंड कुछ लोग डूअर्स होते हैं, उन्हें करके लगता है कि हाँ मैंने कुछ किया, ठीक है? जिनकी रियलिटी टेस्टिंग थोड़ी स्ट्रांग होती है, दे आर ग्राउंडेड इन रियलिटी, दे कांट टेक दैट लीप ऑफ फेथ अंटिल दे एक्चुअली डू इट, राइट? सो आई बिलोंग टू दैट कैटेगरी कि मुझे करके ही कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा. सिर्फ अगर मैं इमेजिन कर रही हूँ, एफर्मेशंस बोल रही हूँ, मुझे नहीं आ रहा है. So one thing I did was to put myself out there a lot. And इसको exposure therapy भी कहते हैं, subject yourself to rejection. मतलब बुरा लगेगा, but eventually, through you systematically get desensitized to it, just through mere exposure. So did that. Gain some confidence, and confidence is actually a journey. So you gain confidence, you arrive on say level 8. But next level requires you to take more risk, right? To do more, to gain more skill, to actually do that. And ultimately, of course, it's also a journey of self acceptance, because you come to a place जहाँ पे सिर्फ करके नहीं होता है. You have to integrate the opposite. कि जो आप हो एज अ ह्यूमन बीइंग, वो भी एक्सेप्ट करना जरूरी है. यू कांट बी लाइक वेरी अचीवमेंट फोकस्ड आइदर, है ना? यू हिट अ ब्लॉक देयर. So that's what my journey has been. Firstly, it's been about doing, putting myself out there, subjecting myself to rejection, feedback, criticism, getting over it, but also simultaneously learning to accept myself with flaws and the real me, not just the one that is, has achieved or has titles, or not the one that is more idealistic, the one with flaws. So I think that's how I can sum it up.
Thank you so much. That was really an amazing story, I would say. And it's like very heart touching as well. So, from this, I can say that you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Isn't it?
Definitely.
Shashti ma'am, does it go well?
It does it.
Yeah.
That not a lot of things are, वो वैसा है कि कर्म करो, फल की चिंता मत करो.
फल की
So
चिंता मत करो,
if
yes.
are not in your hand, but that said, you can't have an very external locus of control either, because then फिर आप कुछ करोगे नहीं, आपके अंदर motivation नहीं होगा to do anything.
Yes, so true,
Yes.
so true.
Yes.
Srishti,
Thank you
I'm
so
sorry
much.
to interrupt, but I
Yes.
love the point of exposure therapy because we all go through it, but we have not named it. But if there is some science behind it, I think very good. कि rejection face करना भी अच्छा है. You just have to put yourself out.
Small steps.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also agree with you what you have said about exposure therapy, especially with the younger generation, because they are being brought up so protected that they are unable to accept rejection today. A slight rejection, and they immediately, start feeling having anxiety and all of those things. I mean, they actually
Yeah.
can't feel the life. And it's not just limited to women or men, it's like across the board. We find that youngsters are finding it much more hard to deal with these kind of rejections that they have to, because mollycoddling is taking place for them at their, when they're kids. So what you said is correct. I think everybody should be, sent up and put out and say, go see the world, face a few rejections, then you will know also what you like and you don't like.
Exactly. You get to know yourself so much just
So
by
much.
Vidyaji, I feel perfectionists should be exposed most to exposure therapy,
Yes.
because for them taking failure becomes like a do and die
Do it.
situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You should put
So I love this stuff. I'm going to be stealing it from you.
that.
Yes, so that was really something new we learned today. Thank you so much for that, Shrishti.
Thank you.
So let's move on to our next panelist, Miss Trupti Sani. So, Trupti, for you, the question is, as a healer, you help others, right? So, what are some practices that has helped you strengthen your own self-worth? Over
Thank you
to you.
so much here for inviting me here today as a panelist, and a very happy Women's Day to each and every one over here. We all, I'm sure, are very proud to be women, and they say it takes lifetimes to be a woman, and and you're really really proud to be here as a woman, right? So thank you so much. Yes, so the practices that I do to strengthen myself and my inner core is journaling and meditation. So I totally believe in journaling completely, and that is what has transformed my life. You know, so my life also has gone through a lot of twists and turns. It was not like one direct path that I have taken to be here as a healer and an NLP coach. It is like like a river which is going through a lot of obstacles and all that. My life also has gone through a lot of obstacles in the sense like I was not very fixed about what I want to become in life. I never had a purpose, and I was going career, moving careers, like changing things. Like I was like, okay, okay, this is not serving me. Okay, like let me try something different. Let me try something different. I started off being as a storyteller. That was my first thing, and that's when Sheetal and I joined hands together. And we did a lot of leadership camps, and we did a lot of theater workshops and all that together. And when my own kids were born, I did Q math and brain training and IQ training for children. But then life took has its own twists and turns and obstacles which comes up in various ways. So that time when my kids were born, and soon after my mom passed away, and that was a very traumatic period for me. And immediately after that, within a year, my sister also passed away, and both of them had passed away through trauma, a very challenging illness. And my sister was like my mother figure, leaving behind two daughters, very young daughters. So that really shook me. And I held on to my emotions. I didn't know how to cope with my emotions. And but I just went ahead with my life. I was like, okay, fine, you have to be positive. That's the only thing I knew, like be positive and go ahead and come on, let's just face life. But how to deal with these emotions? How do we deal with these emotions? That's what I did not know. It was all stuck inside, So somewhere it was coming out in some other kind of form, like screaming at my children, getting irritated for unnecessary reason, becoming angry for no particular thing. Because these emotions were deep down, these energies which were stuck were not allowing me to go ahead. And plus there was a lot of restlessness because I had not found my purpose in life. I was just moving from here to there, here to there, and I had not found that purpose in life. So then during COVID times, when we were all sitting at home and there was, you know, nothing that I could do much, I thought, let me take up emotional intelligence course, just a very short course for some 1 month or something like that. That actually made me realize that, yes, I need to work within myself. I have so much within myself that I really, really need to work with. That's when I went ahead and I studied neuro-linguistic programming, which is like rewiring your brain and your subconscious. And of course, then the core of my teaching lies with Ho'oponopono as a healer. The four sentences, the four most magical sentences I believe in is I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. That really helped me deal with the energies that were stuck, that was really, really stuck within me. Energies of resentment, why this has happened to me, energies of, we fear, will it happen to somebody else in my family? So there were so many things like this, and that had gone on creating blockages in every area of my life because it was showing up somewhere or the other. Then I realized when I did Ho'oponopono, when I did NLP, that yes, I have to, deal and clear and release these energies, release all this from my own system, my subconscious mind, my space. And when I started doing journaling, when I started doing this flow magical statements of, that whatever is there, however we are in life, because the data, the memory, the programming that we have in our life, we need to clear all that, come to a zero state, come to a state of peace, come to a state of calm, and then we can go ahead in life. Life changed. Life really, really changed for me. It brought so much of peace within me that I could touch my inner core. There were moments when I don't want to be, with the people. My most magical moments are when I'm with myself, when I'm totally and totally aligned with myself and the universe. And I really believe in Brahma Muhurat. I really believe in getting up at 4 a.m., doing my meditations. I really, really like that. And I feel like touching my inner self through journaling, just bringing out everything on paper, whatever you have in your mind, bringing it out on paper, just writing, writing, writing. I got to know myself much, much better. I got to know, what turns me on, how do I now align myself with the purpose in my life, right? So that's how, then, I went ahead in my journey. I then started, helping other people by becoming a Ho'oponopono healer, an NLP coach, by clearing their energies and then rewiring their brain, they rewiring their subconscious mind for their behaviors, their attitudes, their habits which are still stuck. And I also relate to this story about starfishes. When there was this guy who was walking on the seashore and he saw so many starfishes and he just threw one starfish into the sea, and then somebody just told him, why are you just throwing one? What difference is it going to make? So he said that at least it's going to make a difference that one starfish. So I believe in that at least if I can make a difference so that one person out there, my purpose of life is solved. My purpose of life is resolved. So yes, I do believe that when we clear our energies, we can really rise above and reach our innermost core. And if we can reach out to people and help them, yes, that will serve our purpose. That will serve my purpose. So yes, thank you so much for listening in.
Thank you, Trupti. That was wonderful. So, I have known that your brain is not a fixed machine. It is a dynamic network which can be rewired with every experience, every thought, and every intention. Right? And for that, we need somebody like you to do it. So, the most courageous act is still to think for yourself, right? And that we usually don't do it. So when healers, when NLP coaches helps us, it is something we get aware of. Sometimes it happens, that we already know this thing. If now supposingly Trupti is telling me something, then I will feel that okay, I already know this thing, but we were not doing it. So that's when you realize that okay, this way it can be done, and I already know it. So it's always that we learn so much, but then it has to be reminded every time, isn't it? So that's what I feel what coaches do with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Yes, Chair ma'am, would you like to say something? You're
Yes,
muted.
I'm still processing because
Okay.
currently I'm in a I since last 2 days I'm in a process of identifying the patterns which bother me. And what Trupti is talking about, maybe I'll take this conversation further with her
Okay.
because
Yes,
I realize I have certain patterns which bring me the ooh moments. So I would like to, I'm just processing. There are many other people there. I think everybody is taking it in their way, but I'm
Yes.
processing the whole thing, how she has brought it out. And thank you, Trupti ma'am.
thank you. Thank you
Yes.
so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
The journey that she spoke about, I think it's very similar to lot of what a lot of us actually go through, and the transformative power of Ho'oponopono. I myself have tried the practice. It's very powerful, and I think it's something that most other people could also give a try. Like it's certainly worth I think there was a specific jail in which, a man can correct me, there was a specific jail in which they tried on the jail inmates.
Yes, Dr.
And
Hewlin,
yeah,
who's the founder, one of the founders of Ho Open Open,
yeah.
he had gone to this jail where there were criminally ill patients, like totally abusive people and criminals who could not handle themselves also. So that's when he went and he did this prayer on himself, because he is like, what have I attracted in me for me to come and experience and being exposed to such people? And where biggest psychiatrists and all of them could not heal these people, he just, without even meeting them, by just reading their case files, he sat in his own office and he's healed them all, and every person was healed. And
Wow,
that is the magic of this prayer. Yes.
that's wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much, Trupti. Now we'll move on to our next panelist, Ms. Shloka Shankar. So, for you, the question is, Shloka, how does creativity play a role in breaking self doubt and building confidence?
Hi everyone, happy Women's Day. Really pleased to be here. Thank you, Vidya ma'am, for the kind invite. So I'm Shloka from Bangalore, and my story doesn't date back to as early as Adam and Eve, but it started off in 2012. Once I completed my master's and moved back to Bangalore, I started dabbling in free verse a little more, and I was introduced to haiku, the Japanese short form of poetry, in 2014. And that's when it really made me realize that this was my truest form of self-expression in a way, and it gave me that capacity to sort of hone my skills and find my voice in this super minimalist form, which teaches you to break away all of the unwanted fluff. And also, it can be seen as a way of um, dealing even with life. You strip off the unnecessary things, and what's left at in the center is the core, which is what a haiku is. It's very zen-like, and essentially it teaches you to peel away the extraneous fluff, and somehow it helps you reach your authentic self. And that is what haiku is giving me. And side by side, I also started dabbling in art. So for me, I personally absolutely love digital artwork and collages and making abstract art. And abstract art, of course, as we know, is extremely subjective, and subject to in terms of the what mood it evokes or what emotions it invokes, which is why all of us have a certain response to it, completely different. And poetry is itself in that way is subjective. But for me, it gave me a sense of community, and a chance to network with poets I never would have had it not been. Okay, there are obviously a lot of cons when it comes to social media, but for me, Facebook was great in terms of accessing poets from across the world, especially the haiku community. So I could meet people in New Zealand, in Denmark, in US, of course, in UK, and they were very warm and welcoming of newer poets. I was just 23 or 24 at the time, and all of my Facebook poet friends were in their 70s or 80s, right? So, but I still cherish those relationships and those friendships because they've taught me so much. They've literally seen me grow as what I would like to call a haiku baby. So I took my first steps into poetry, and then they've literally sort of handheld. And then I took this leap of faith in um, late, I think December of 2014. I was about a year into haiku, less than a year, and I had this whim that I should start my own journal, which I did. I took that complete leap of faith. Kal ki bachi kaun kuch, why will they even submit to me? So that was the kind of doubt I had. But shockingly, all of these poets supported my venture. I had all these big, renowned people submitting, and I was pinching myself. I was just asking myself, how is this even possible? So I learned to trust in myself, and okay, I do have it in me. There's something, and I'm doing something right at least for these people to take the time to send me their work. Um, and then that went on for about a while. We completed 24 issues in 2023. I took a hiatus of 2 years and came back to it this year with a bang. And surprisingly enough, so many of them were happy that we resurrected, as it were. And we got very warm and welcoming response again. So when we opened in Jan, we received a little over 700 submissions, which I didn't expect at all. So, it was just a very nice gesture for all of them to sort of say that I got very kind emails saying, so glad to see you back and all of that. So it kind of put that confidence back in me that, okay, maybe I've always thought of it as doing something for the community, giving back in some way. And then along the way, of course, there've been publications, and of course, you always have to grapple with imposter syndrome, which kicks in every few days. And it's just impossible, if you're a writer, you will be dealing with that at some point or the other. And for me, it's always there. But then I realized that, okay, I must be doing at least something right, because why is this sustaining otherwise? So whether it's my students or whether it's the workshops I conduct, or um, I also started my own press in 2018 as an offshoot of Sonic Boom, the journal. So I wanted to create a platform where chapbooks are popular in India as a concept, because a chapbook is not all that popular in India as yet. People are more interested in full-length collections as such. A chapbook typically contains only somewhere between 15 to 20 poems, but you can finish reading it in one sitting. And these are ebooks, so it's accessible to everyone worldwide. So you forget about the shipping and courier and all of that. So logistics is totally zero in that sense. And it made it again, we've published about 85 titles through Yavanika. And just through everybody's sort of generosity and belief that, we are aesthetic and what we bring out in terms of the kind of books that we bring out, it sort of resonates with the readers and our poets as well. So it's just been very interesting that way. And one way that I usually cope with the self-doubt angle as a poet and artist is I participate regularly in challenges. So whether it's a monthly challenge, or because that sense of community is so important, it's very easy to doom scroll and start comparing yourself to others. Like, what am I even making, compared to this portrait or that artist or this artist? It's very easy to spiral into that rabbit hole, which I think all of us do at some time in our own fields, which can get very dark and very scary very quickly. So I find that these monthly challenges, they sort of remove that pressure of they just make it art for art's sake. You go back to the core of being creative. What does it mean to you? Right? As long as you are working on your craft, I think that's the most important thing. Forget about what anybody else is doing. If you are getting at least, I don't know, 5% better each year, and honing your voice, and writing better than you were a year ago, or creating meaningful art, that need not be trailblazing or path breaking, but it's something meaningful to you. So I feel like that sort of boosts confidence as well, as long as you are challenging yourself and willing to take those risks in terms of craft or a new perspective, or maybe learning a new medium, whatever it is. So I really find those doing those challenges really helpful, because again, it also helps in terms of perspectives. For example, I'll give you this very wonderful example. Every April and October, we have something called the Poeming, which takes place as this found poetry challenge, where people from around the world can participate with a single book that they give you, or they pick one author and each person gets to pick one particular novel from that author. So in April, it's usually one book and several poets sort of create poems using that one source text. And it's so refreshing to see how, using the same page, there are about 10 different poems, which is so fascinating because it really shows the diversity. And you don't have to really feel, sort of, there are two ways that we can look at this. You can either say, oh my gosh, this is so much better than mine, or you can be inspired by it. Right? So just, the way people are creating using the same page, the same words, but how different perspectives are. And that also sort of challenges you to explore further in your own sort of meaning making and creativity. So that's how it's helped me. Thanks again for inviting me. it's really been wonderful listening to all of you.
Thank you so much. Shloka, that was a really beautiful thing. I would like to say that I had just finished writing my first book and it's under
Oh.
publication now.
Wonderful.
So this
Congratulations.
was, yeah, thank you so much. So that was really inspirational for me as well. So I would like to one thing what you told, that that was a particular word you used in the syndrome. What kind of a syndrome? Imposter syndrome,
Right.
That's what you used.
Right.
So it's kind of a feeling of self-doubt and inadequacy, right? Despite we know
Yes.
that we are successful,
Yes.
but then also we always have that self-doubt for us.
Absolutely.
And we always like, am I perfect? Am I doing it well?
Right.
Something
And
like
Vidya
that.
ma'am is privy to this. She's seen me go through those phases.
Okay.
I will go to her and say, ma'am, this is crap. So, she knows that. So,
Right.
Yeah, and
Sloka, you mentioned haiku, and I
Yes.
remember teaching haiku to my fifth graders long time back.
Oh,
And
okay.
we
How
loved
lovely.
doing how, yes, I used to teach poetry in my classroom and as an English
Amazing.
language, and I used to teach them different forms of poetry, and I used to love haiku. You brought those days back to me. I
How
have
lovely.
I wrote a few. Maybe I'll take inspiration from you and restart again. Thank you
Please
for
do.
reminding.
yeah, she's my mentor. And I and ask me about imposter syndrome because I keep on sending all my works to her, and then she will say, "This is garbage. Throw it in the." Then you're like, "Am I doing it right?" But then she will also tune in and make your work so much better after she has worked with you over a piece. Maybe we do it 4 or 5 times, and at the end of it, you're really satisfied with what has come out of it. So yeah, I mean, most of her students already know imposter syndrome. But she's quite a hard taskmaster at that.
Yes. One thing what I liked really is that what you said is keep challenging yourself
Right. Yes.
because that is really important. Because yes, then it is if you don't do that, it's very easy to slip into that imposter syndrome.
Correct. And also you get complacent now because you feel like, okay,
Yes.
I'm happy where I am. But
Yes.
then the world just passes you by and then you feel, okay, what am I doing wrong? But
Right.
it's very easy to become stale also in terms of doing the same thing or writing about the same thing again and again. It gets so easy to do that. And I make sure my students don't. With a whip, with a virtual whip.
Yes.
I just read when you're talking about challenges, Trupti. I just read and it resonated with me, actually inspired me that your daily grind, what tasks you want to avoid, start making that as a challenge.
Yes.
Make it a gaming thing and do it what you ought to do, what you got to do, but
Oh
without
yes, I saw this
cribbing.
insane reel where this guy who lives with his roommate, to make sure he does the household chores, he invents this actual Dungeons and Dragons sort of game on the fridge, making sure he has levels. So he makes it exactly what you said. He gamifies the
Wow.
whole thing and makes sure the house is clean. Genius reel.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would conclude with this that your body hears everything your mind says, so make sure it speaks kindness, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's move on to our next panelist, Miss Upasna Tendulkar. So the question for you is, Upasna, you combine movement and storytelling. So how does this art form empower
Dancing tips.
women to believe in themselves?
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I'm already in awe with everyone's stories. Everyone is doing such an amazing work. How moments and storytelling help to come across the self doubts. It does for me, and that gave me a confidence that it can do for everyone. Um, Dancing Tales was started in 2019 when I am a Bharatanatyam dancer. Since the age of 5, I'm learning dance. As anyone would take a very regular path after I completed my Visharad, I stopped dancing and I started a very regular journey of going to college, then did my job, then did MBA from the UK. There I realized that when everything is good, I was always a very social person. I never had those days when uh, I was good. Still, there was something missing. So I realized there is a huge void in my life which I'm not able to understand what is that. And as time went by, I realized it's dance. And I shouldn't have stopped dancing. So I started dancing. And when I came back, I had certain lows in my life. At that point of time, dance really helped me a lot. And I always had this questioning mind. So I started understanding what's the science behind it. Why does dance do that? How does dance help to do that? उस प्रोसेस में उस चक्कर में मैं बहुत सारे डांस फॉर्म्स सीख लिए, सूफी वर्लिंग कर लिया, गुरजीत मूवमेंट सीख लिए, बहुत कुछ कर लिया, and I realized, oh my god, it's so liberating. And I came back to Bharatanatyam again, and started my riyas once again. And I realized two things very strongly there. If you have your identity very strong, it becomes easy for you to accept other things. So I coming from a very Indic classical dancing background, it became easy for me to understand them also deeper beyond movements. So that kept going, and I started something called Dancing Tales in 2019, where the entire purpose was to spread the joy of dancing to whoever it can be. हमारे घर के maid से लेके कोई भी, I would just push them to dance. And it was helping them. It was just making them happy, and that was making me happy. And at the parallelly, I was even researching what is dance, why does this do all this to you. So इस चक्कर में मैंने बहुत सारे books भी पढ़ लिए. So I came across Natya Shastra, and Natya Shastra became a turning point of my life. Started researching on that, and I realized it's talking much more than just dance. It's talking about all art forms of our country. It is a grammar, it is an understanding of what the art form of India are, how India looks at aesthetics, how India looks at Saundarya. So I got really absorbed into it. And then I came back, I realized there is so much demand for this per se, Natya Shastra. Wherever LinkedIn helped me a lot. I used to post about Natya Shastra on LinkedIn. And so many people from so many various fields approach and say, can we do something using this? Can we do something using that? So take it corporates, take it education, take it civil services, take everywhere. And I realized, oh my God, there's so much demand to what I had left back then. Then the first moment of doubt came because I was doing a proper corporate job. And it was giving me good amount of money. Everything was good. Should I leave that for something which I don't know? How will it shape? So that time, the first moment of doubt came, and I realized doubts are like so important in your life, because then you realize that you have to do something different than what others are doing. You're meant to do something different than what others are doing. So I said, let's try. क्या ही होगा? इतना क्या ही होगा? Then of course money is a great security that you have in your life. To keep that aside and to focus on something was a little difficult, but I think when you're aligned to what you're meant to do, God sails you through. So it just happened, and it went on becoming a meditative dancing field. So dance as a meditation, dance to dive within, and beyond dance, in general, arts to dive within. Natya Shastra helped me to create strong structures, strong processes, because what I was talking was only at experiential level. So why would people come to me if they are not understanding what I'm talking? So Natya Shastra helped me to create processes, brought a language to tell what I wanted to express. Since then, there is no looking back. A lot people have been very generous. They have been like, they just opportunities have been like showering, and it's been great. How movements help to heal. as we say that, as you just mentioned, that every body part listens, every body part. So we need to be kind to our body. Yes, there I came across the concept of cellular consciousness. Every cell has its own memory, own intelligence, and when we want to when we are trying to say something and words are becoming less, or words are not enough, then moments come into picture, because some traumas are in your body, some traumas are in some part of your body that you don't even know that they exist. So when you move, when you liberate yourself, when you dance your heart out, it just helps to release all those stuffs. Parallelly, then I started going through typical dances of India, like जो ancient times से आ रहा है, जैसे तांडव, रास लीला and everything. And I realized, oh, it's all talking about physics, quantum, meta. And then I went into physics, and that helped me to create courses for universities. And the organization I was working with gave me a first break to teach this courses in their university itself, and that's how this whole thing has been shaped.
That was so, so, so wonderful, Upasana.
Thank you.
Yes. So, like, I would, say that dance, when it comes to dance, right? We tell that Gujaratis are born with garbas in their blood, so we don't have to be taught. गुजरातीज को गरबा आता ही है, हमेशा सिखाने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. But now when you talked about Natya Shastra, that was a revelation, understanding the beauty and the depth, and I think I'm very fond of dancing, and I would really like to explore more on that. Like, there was something I would like to learn. So thank you. Maybe I'll come back to you on the same later.
More than welcome.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else would like to ask anything to Shlok Upasana? Sorry.
That was really interesting. I'll definitely come to you and want to figure out more about that. Somatic, that's a somatic practice. There are several systems like Feldenkrais. Even Peter Levine has come up with his own system. To see the parallel जो West कह रहा है, जो नाट्य शास्त्र में है, I'm sure there are a lot of synergies. So would love to possibly understand.
Definitely, I think we all are working towards just one thing in different
Yes,
ways. So if we collaborate, it's going to be great.
definitely. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, so even I believe, that emotion is energy in motion. So in whichever form. So definitely dancing along with a lot of song and a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of a lot of energy that we put in does help us heal. In fact, in some of our workshops, we also make the clients dance in our group workshops, and all that. We make the clients dance. So
Yeah.
that energy which is stuck is then released. So yes, it was so beautiful listening to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It definitely everything is finally an energy. One thing I came across, which really, two things actually stayed with me. One is, even if one soul is suffering anywhere, we all are suffering. So in whichever ways we can pull each other out of that suffering and
Yes,
raise. It's a
yes,
service to humanity, and we deserve to be loved just for being. We don't have to achieve something to get someone's love. So I
yes,
think that's what we all are doing, creating communities where we can be and loved for just what we are.
Yeah,
totally.
I have my biggest self doubt in dancing. I don't know. I mean, even when I was trying to learn Garba and this thing, I kept on missing the steps. And so when I would play, I used to play for University of Mumbai. So we would go for these. So we had matches in different places, and it was during these kind of Garba time only that we had one of the matches, and everyone went for dance. And somehow, all my other mates, they were all there. They were doing it well, and they pulled me in, and I said, I don't think it's a good idea. After like about 2 rounds, they said, yes, stay out because too many people got injured. So that's one self doubt, I think, which I've never managed to actually overcome. So
It's because of the wrong conditioning. Many people say so, and it's not that they are lying or something. Naturally, their experiences have been like that. So even before we talk, we communicate using movements and singing and artists that and drawing. That's what comes to us naturally. It's embedded in our DNA. Just that we link dancing कि हमें एक टाइप का डांस है, सालसा है, भरतनाट्यम है, टैंगो है, तो हम डांसर्स है, नहीं तो हम डांसर्स नहीं है, ऐसे नहीं है. Any movement that is on rhythm is dance. It is as simple as that, but we are part of that society where we are heavily conditioned to think
condition,
otherwise.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you cannot dance like a Bharatanatyam artist, you're not a dancer. Down south, that's the concept, you know.
That's unfortunate.
Growing up, that's what everybody had as a benchmark, and you can't reach those benchmarks. So I guess that's where the self-doubt in that came for me.
Vidya ji, bhangra kar lo. There is nothing there. You just do it. Just do it.
Just stand in a place.
Yes, just do anything. सब चलता है. But wonderful. I'm so awed by this dancing tales thing, you know.
Yeah.
मैं इनफैक्ट
Very
बोलने
nice,
वाली थी
Upasana.
that Bhangra is the easiest form and you can do it any which ways. So that's, I think anybody can do it, and especially when the drum beat starts, I think our legs
Yeah.
starts tapping. मतलब शर्म के मारे, if we are not doing it also, the legs and the hands start tapping.
Nobody judges you in bhangra.
Yes,
You know, there's no
yes.
self-doubt.
Yes.
There's no self-doubt.
Then that's the form I should try first.
Do that.
That's so true. Okay, that was so wonderful hearing everyone's story, and it's really something to take from each one of you, a lesson which and we can put away in our life for practice. So before we move forward, we don't have much time though. I just wanted everybody to do, maybe the participants also for sure. I want you to close your eyes, and think about this story, what everybody told, the panelists told right now. A time when the moment when you doubted yourself, but you still moved forward. Maybe it was speaking up in a meeting, yeah, maybe it was standing up for what you believed in, or maybe it was just waking up and choosing to keep going. That moment is your strength. So just close your eyes for 10 seconds and think of that, and I want everybody to share here. So let's please close your eyes. Yes. So who would like to share that one moment when you had felt self-doubt and you just said, okay. Anybody?
All right. I think I'll share, because I think this is something many women have when it comes to. So I've been married twice. My first marriage, it was a 12-year long relationship, in the sense that I had 4 years of dating, and then I was married for 7 years or 8 years. So when my ex-husband told me that he was in a relationship with one of our friends, and it came to a moment where I had to take a call, on whether I would be able to walk out of this relation, because I had already given it 12 years of my life. And I had a 4-year-old child, and there were 2 kids involved in the other side also. So my ex-husband's current wife, also had 2 kids. So one of the biggest doubts I had at that moment was my ability. It's not like I wasn't working. I always worked. Since 22, I was a professor. So I was taking care of my own finances. I had a house of my own, thankfully. So those things were sorted. If I choose to walk out, I had a place to go. My doubt was, as a single parent, would I be able to take care of a kid? Because my working hours were crazy. I left home at 5:30 in the morning. So how would I take care of a child when I come back at 6 and 7? Would I be able to give him the necessary attention? So I think that was a very crucial moment, which, in a way, I think I tided over it by giving myself and my ex-husband some time, saying that, hey, these things do happen. Would you want to think over it? So 3 months is what we both gave each other time to think over it. And at the end of it, he still couldn't make up his mind. But those 3 months definitely, because I had known what had happened, I realized that I couldn't live in a relationship where I was not valued, I was not respected, and I could not trust him anymore. And if he says that, hey, I'm going to rebuild life with you, there would be a smitten of doubt every time he came in home late. And I knew that I didn't want to live the rest of my life only in the name of, because I have a child with him like that. That's when my self-doubt completely changed. And I knew that I needed to walk out of this relationship and this marriage and build my own life. And that's what I did. It after 3 months, that because I gave myself that time to process what had happened to me, because it was a lot of processing that needed to be done, I could make that choice at that time. And that choice, even though it was quite hard for my child initially, but it turned out to be the best choice, because today my ex-husband and I are friends. We come and go to each other's home. My child sees two adults who behave well with each other. So he understands that even if, adults are like this, a child can still be loved. Because that's what I wanted to have, in spite of what had happened. So I think this was a very crucial moment of self-doubt that I had. And my way of dealing with it was to give it time. When something very shocking happens, if you try to find solution right at that moment, it's not going to come to you. You have to find and give it time to have that distance, to be a little more objective about what you're going to take as a step, and then take that step. I guess for me, that was the most crucial movement of self-doubt to having belief in what I'm going to do with my life.
Yes. Anybody would like to question Vidya ma'am or discuss anything with her, please? So,
Thank
ma'am,
you
I
for
would
being
like.
so vulnerable and sharing your story with us. I think it requires great courage. Of all the stories, I think this was the most personal, and just really admire your strength.
Thank you.
So, Vidya ma'am, even I wanted to ask you the same thing. Like, I not ask, but I would say that most women, they don't want to walk out, right, from a relationship or from the marriage, because again, as Indians, हमको वही सिखाया गया है बचपन से
Still
that
pressure.
yes, adjust. That is the thing what we have been taught from our childhood, right? So doing that thing is something which requires real strength and real power to do
I
it.
think
So I would
also
say hats
walking
off to
away,
you.
walking away with dignity is also something that we need. Because
Yes.
many of these things, especially when there is an extramarital affair involved in it, turns ugly.
Yes.
Be able to walk out of with both sides keeping their dignity is very crucial. And I think people need a little space out time to do that. Otherwise, you're too emotionally there at that moment to actually make a good decision about what you're going to do. And you doubt yourself. I doubted myself so badly. I thought that I was not good enough, because one of the
Right.
first things that comes to your head is you don't blame the person. It's always the victim who will blame themselves first.
Yes.
We never blame the perpetrator. So society also doesn't do it. It tells you fell short, that's why he went out, okay, or he did something. So you have, or not just are you doubting yourself, you have the entire society telling you were somehow lacking, which is why this happened to you. So then to build your self belief is such a huge thing that that's I have had too many of these crises. I think when I had to lose all my both my breasts, because I'm a BRCA2 positive. I had breast cancer, so I'm literally without any of the female organs. I do not have breasts, I do not have uterus, I do not have my ovaries. Again, my doctor asked me, are you going to be okay as a woman? I said, how am I going to associate my physical part to be being a woman? It doesn't. I'm woman
Right.
here, not in here. Yes,
Right.
that's physically there. So I have had those kind of crises. Yeah, it's not been an, but I learned through each of this that space and time and giving that distance really helps to make that decision. for these kind of things. Yeah. So, and I think that's what I've been telling my students also. That is why I think Yash came back to me because exactly, I was this vulnerable with my students also. I shared my life journey. I said, you all will go through this. If not divorce, then maybe relationships may not work out. Then how do you work with it? What do you do? So, and right at the moment when I was going through it, I shared it with my students. Yash knew about my divorce and everything. So I think I've been very, very open, honest the way I have lived. I don't hide anything. Everybody generally knows my entire life story. So, and if I have doubt, I tell them right now I am suffering from crisis of self doubt. It will take some time for me to probably come out of it. But I think we all have to accept the vulnerability of being in that position and then finding the strength. Which is why when Sheetal suggested this topic, I thought it was a brilliant topic to have because this is something that all women deal with. And having conversations about it is so essential. And that's why I was so happy that all of you shared your journeys and spoke about how you dealt with it, because these are various strategies that would be available to people whoever are watching, or maybe when it goes on YouTube somebody is searching and finds it, maybe one of our
Yes.
strategies will work for them. And I think that's a wonderful contribution we can make to helping somebody out somewhere out there.
So true, so true.
Vidyaji, I totally agree with you regarding the topic which has been, brought out here, because I had a separate panel discussion on WhatsApp with many people. Uh, she had Dr. Sheetal had shared many leading questions, and I actually asked those to many of my known people and of different age groups. And first of all, it led to a lot of reflection from them and from me too, and it also brought out so many common factors irrespective of age, demography, and also wherever you are in terms of your careers or position, and also very fresh perspective which maybe I in my current with being in the senior side with lots of experience, and people who are starting out, or people who are still in college, or people who are in their mid career journeys. So there were so many fresh perspectives, and I realized we need to have these conversations. We
More
really
often.
need to have these conversations. And I run a page which Dr. Sheetal is also part of. I run a group, and I also wrote a LinkedIn page that we need to have these conversations on regular basis.
Yes.
If we have to work towards something, or if even if people want to know, people want to listen, because there are so many of the women out there who don't have an outlet, who don't have the accessibility to community. We talk about big organizations, they're doing this, they're doing, but I'm talking about common people like us, like you, who don't are
Yeah.
not part of any movement or part of a very formal organization. And we need to have these conversations, but because there are people who are lost and they need anchoring. Once we find that everyone goes through self doubt, everyone has those issues, maybe the contexts are different and how you are dealing with even these conversations. I am I would have loved to have more people here, but I think it's just a start. And I want to start separate communities or separate groups within the community that I have created. I have about 350 members who are all teachers. We talk about teaching, we talk about how to do things and how to work for yourself. But within that communities, there's so much of need, that you don't even know that you have a need.
Yeah.
The Johari window says, I don't know what I don't know. And there are
Yeah.
those so many people out there who really don't know, and they're still just struggling with so much. And that's the most pertinent point. We need to bring this conversation. We need to normalize this conversation. We need to have these conversations over a cup of tea every day with a group, or maybe a group like this. Just come at 5 o'clock, bring your own cup of tea, and just start chatting,
Yeah, I
because this is
agree.
very, very
Uh,
necessary.
yeah, because even Marxist feminists talk about consciousness raising. So they, wherever Marxist feminists were working, they actually went out into spaces of communities of men, women, and all, and they started bringing women together to just talk about things and creating consciousness about what are the things that trouble them, what are the things that they needed to look at, what are the things they need to question, what are the things stereotypes they need to break. So they regularly, without fail, have meetings. It's called consciousness raising meetings. So that helps women to come out of the molds that they are all been put into. It actually helps them to question what roles are they playing. Are these roles something they want to play, or it has been enforced on them? So these are things that we all carry with us as baggages. Even though I was brought up in a very liberal family, I mean, when I got married into that family, I started following all the rituals. I started following what is expected of a wife. So,
I know.
which is why it became so difficult for me to break away. Those 3 months was essential because I became conditioned. Like,
Yes.
No,
until,
we try to fit in, The
yeah,
moment we get married, we try to fit in, We try to be the person, okay. Instead of the family opening up for a new person, we try to change ourselves. And I think this,
so,
even if there are no solutions, just to know that okay, other person is also going through this is also very, a comforting thought that okay, सबके साथ होता है, ये सिर्फ मेरे साथ नहीं है. हाँ,
just,
और
yeah,
मे बी उन्हीं कॉन्वर्सेशंस में से कुछ practical pragmatic solutions भी मिलती हैं which might not be life changing but which might
yeah,
just change the way of working or change a way of handling.
Yeah,
like,
here I would just like to add that we had just recently done a workshop
hmm,
for women on for Women's Day, and where we just brought awareness of boundaries to them, like mental, physical, emotional. So they didn't even know that such a thing exists, and we can put ourselves ahead. We can, bring awareness, and we can put ourselves and say, no, please, I really don't want to do this. I don't want this to show this commitment. I don't want to do it. As simple as that. They feel that if we say no, it's like, we're disrespecting somebody, we're disappointing somebody, they will dislike us. So there was so much of thing that they didn't even know that okay, we can say no. As simple as that. No, you have to say yes. They're conditioned like that. We have to say yes. So that was so enlightening for them and even for me to realize that so simple, such a small thing, but they're not aware of it. So there's so much awareness that is needed out there.
yeah,
Trupti, let me be very frank. 5 years back, 5 or 7 years back, I never knew what the word boundary means in terms of except the geographical boundaries. We never got into a conversation of boundaries. What are boundaries? This generation talks about boundaries. हमें तो पता ही नहीं था कि ये भी
Yes,
कुछ होता है.
true, true. I
I
agree
hope I'm
totally.
not sounding very ancient.
No,
No,
no, that is true. That is true.
no,
Because
no,
even to this
Jayashree
day,
ma'am. Yes, I mean this workshop has happened just recently, and when we said that you need to keep these boundaries, you need to learn to say no, so they were feeling shy. कि हम किसी को no कैसे बोल सकते हैं? How can we say no if somebody is giving you work overload? Then how can we say no? How can we do that? And they're not ready to accept, until we make them understand that it is okay to say no wherever, anywhere, not only in office, at home also, right?
Oh,
When you are not able to do something, when you are already exhausted, so please, set your boundaries and tell that this can be done later. If this is not a priority, I can do this later.
yeah,
see,
So
I've
that
heard
is,
people when people talk about a woman says that I want personal space. There's no personal space after wedding, after marriage. Personal space क्या होता है?
क्या
Are you
होता है,
so
right?
selfish कि तुम्हें personal space चाहिए?
yes,
Right.
And all these concepts, because we are woke, we talk about it, we discuss everything. But there are many people उनको पता ही नहीं है कि हम क्या बात कर रहे हैं. So
yes,
those conversations have to be brought out.
yes.
Yes.
Accessibility is what I am saying, irrespective of your stature, economic stature, or your positions, or anything. Those conversations have to come out. Because it can't just be the jargons or the woke people
yeah,
वही
yeah.
बात करेंगे ये Zoom पे बैठ के या drawing rooms में बैठ के. It has to be brought out in you.
Yes.
It has to be a larger movement. It has to
Yes.
smaller communities, and that's where it's going to grow.
Upasna, I'd seen your hand up. Please.
Yeah, I with the question that you had in mind, that you posed, one self-doubt, and with Gyan Dastar's vision that was mentioned, and with working with a lot of women in during dancing tales, I realized the most important issues or most important traumas that we don't even understand come from the bedrooms, okay? And they are deep, and even there, that's the space where actually the next civilization is built. And and that's not a very equal space.
Yeah.
And it's dreadful. And we don't even realize how dreadful is that. So, first knowing what we most of the times we don't even know what we are okay with because we don't even know what is expected there.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then after knowing what is expected, we don't know he is only pleasing the way to go about it, or is there something more to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. So true.
dealing with kids and dealing with their parents, I realized actually because the first breath happens through that, and that has to be in the most beautiful and most amazing way. But I think 90% of the time it does not happen that way. And then we ask why the world is in chaos. The answer lies there, because from there the world actually starts.
That's I completely agree with you, Pasna, about this.
So
That's
I think,
why, yeah,
these
because
conversations
this,
are very
one of
important.
the simplest thing was when I had breast cancer, and most people were very sympathetic when they said, "Oh, you had cancer." The moment I said breast cancer, then there is a shrugging and moving away because it's sexualized. I mean, it's sexualized part of a woman's body. So
Yeah.
people become uncomfortable. Nobody wants to talk about it. And I wanted to actually tell people that, hey, if you actually detect early, like I detected it in my first stage, so I needed very minimal intervention for it. Like I needed only a lumpectomy, I needed only 4 chemos and a few radiations. But the later and later you detect it. So women have some. So I underwent double mastectomy and then reconstruction only because my doctor said enough number of women. This is in Coimbatore, one of the biggest hospitals. He's telling me enough number of women come, and when they're told that double mastectomy would be required for them, they go away and die rather than get that done because they think their femininity will be taken away. And he said, as somebody who is not at all conscious or who has not associated breast with femininity, he said, if you do reconstruction, which was a very painful procedure for me, it took me 4 months to recover. But he said, I want to kind of record your journey. And I want to show this to women who come that there is a hope for it, that it is not going to look completely flat chested. You can have reconstruction. And so I have been his, kind of muse for doing. So every single visit I go, he takes a picture, he records the entire process, and he literally acts like he has built a sculpture. So that's how he treats me. But he says this has already led to 4 women agreeing to undergo mastectomy. Women are unwilling to undergo that because of this. So I didn't want to. I was absolutely happy going flat chested. I said it's great. 2 more kgs off my body. So it's as simple as that. So, but he was like, it's not for you. It's for so many other women who come to me and then don't come back because they don't want mastectomy. So I want to give them hope that there is something else that can be done. So these. So that's where the conversation. That's when I spoke to Yash and I said, this is what is happening. Such a major disease, but nobody wants to talk about it because it's sexualized. I said, we need to do something. So Yash reached out and said, let's start something like this. And it was his brainchild. And of course, he pulled me in. So,
Yes, so big shout out to Yash. He's finally on this video. So he's a very shy person and he didn't want to come in video. So I forced him that you have to show your face, right?
Yeah, at least let me have a look at who I am working with.
So thank you so much, Yash, for being here and creating this, team for us. Okay, so let's come to an end. We have crossed the time. But yes, I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude today. It was like a celebration of wisdom, strength, empowerment. And I couldn't be more thankful, for each and everyone who has given their time to talk about their stories. That was something really, really wonderful. So thank you so much, Jayashree ma'am. Thank you so much, Shrishti ma'am. Thank you so
My
much,
pleasure.
Trupti. Yes, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
My
Shloka.
pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Upasna. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your journey, and your hearts with us. So each of us
Can I?
brings.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
No, carry on. Please complete.
Yes, no, it's okay. You can carry on. It's okay. We can complete.
No, I
after
said
each other.
I will be putting up a post about this. I hope I can tag you all on LinkedIn
Sure.
if it is
We can
permitted.
share
Yeah.
each other's pages on chat. Ma'am, you
Yeah,
can
no,
share the
on
group
the
also.
group, please do share that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
No,
yeah,
because everybody is not there in the group. Maybe if you can share in the chat or you want me to share, I can share the group
it'll be
name.
difficult to note down. Just put we can otherwise
I can add
because
Trupti to it. Yes, I think I can share it with Vidya ma'am and she can share it with everyone.
Yeah. We can
We
do
can
yeah,
that.
do that.
yeah.
Yes.
Hello, can I say something?
Of course, ma'am,
Oh
please.
my
Yeah,
God.
I,
That's
I
my
just,
ma'am. She was
Oh,
my
wow.
my teacher from
Yes.
MA days, and she was my PhD guide.
Oh, wow. Welcome, welcome, ma'am.
Namaskar.
It's an honor to be see
oh,
you.
thank you so much for including me in this. I thank Vidya because she informed me. And, I was really, really very much interested in everything that you people were talking about. And something which I even just wrote down, somebody talked about journalism, you
Yes.
writing your memories and whatever. And just wanted to share with you at my age, I'm quite old. That is exactly what I'm doing. I am writing out my memories right from my early childhood to the present times, going, step by step. And I find that it is very, very important. So if we women start thinking about what we can do, there's a lot we can do and lot we can contribute to the society. I just
So
wanted
true,
to
so
add
true.
this.
Superb,
Thank you,
superb.
ma'am, for coming.
No, I have enjoyed everyone speaking,
Yes.
listening to everyone. Yeah.
Yes.
I would like
So,
to read those memories which are open to all and learn from them.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Dr. Sheetal, can we take a screenshot? Can we
I
do
have
that?
been taking pictures continuously.
Great. Please
So
share a
I will
few.
share. Yes, I will share all. I will share all.
Yeah.
So yes, again, thank you to the wonderful audience, right? Because without them, this wouldn't have happened. So let's take this spirit of confidence and collaboration forward. As Sudhamurthy once said, the power to question is the basis of all human progress, right? So keep questioning, keep asking, and let's grow and support each other in this journey. Thank you once again.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank you
evening.
so much.
And yes, if you are available, we have another session with Vidya ma'am at 7. So if you are free, please join in again. Same link. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.